Good morning, Amington, Heath. Today we're going to be writing our own story. We're basing this story around the story that we've read this week in our adventure about Chinese New Year. So we're thinking about the story of the Emperor and how the Chinese years came to be named. Now, in that story, there were animals that had to race across a river in order to come in various places, and whichever place they came, that was the year that was named after them. So we're going to take that story and we're going to try and base our own story around that, but we're going to change some of the things that go into it. So you might want to change perhaps the characters that are in that so that you have names that are different for each year. You may want to change the place that they're racing across. You may want to change what they're actually naming. I've had a little go myself, and my idea was to think about, well, changing the setting a little bit to begin with. So I've set mine in ancient Egyptian times instead of Chinese times. And instead of naming the years, the zodiac years, I've decided that mine's going to be based around naming the days of the week. So my idea was that we had a pharaoh who's very forgetful and he can't quite remember the order of the days of the week, and so he's going to devise a way of naming those days of the week so that it helps him to remember. So I've begun my story here. First thing that I've done is I've remembered to give it a title. So mine's called The Weekday Race. And I made a little plan before I began. I don't know if you can see that, but I've just got a little plan there of the things that I wanted to include in it. Things like the problem that I might have, things like the days of the week that are going to be named, or what animals are going to take place in it, so that I've got my ideas scribbled down on a piece of paper ready to go. It's really important that we include things that you have been learning about this week. So we should be seeing in your writing compound sentences, so that's two simple sentences joined with a coordinating conjunction, so things like and, but, so, and so on, or, nor. And we would also expect to see subordinating conjunctions in there, so as, if, until, before long, and so on, things like that. Since is another one, because obviously that's always a good one to use. So we'd expect to see those in your work as well. And you've been looking at speech, at direct speech. So in your writing, we really want to see you including direct speech in there, punctuated as accurately as you can be. Remember, those speech marks or inverted commas go around what is actually said. Okay, so we'll be looking out for those things in my writing, and then I really want to see some of those coming through in your writing so that we can see all the amazing learning that you've done this week. Okay, so my story begins with long ago, got my comma after that to show that it's an adverbial phrase. In ancient Egyptian times, there lived an elegant pharaoh. He was a good, kind king, but he was a little forgetful, and he often lost track of time. One day he said to his wife, "I'm sure it's my birthday soon." Now if we have a look here, I've got a comma after wife. So just before my inverted commas, I need to remember to put that comma there to show the end of the sentence, or the sentence before the actual speech begins. And then I've got my inverted commas. I'm sure it's my birthday soon is what the pharaoh is actually saying. So that's what my inverted commas go around. I've used an exclamation mark at the end of that speech sentence. So I put the exclamation mark, and then my closing inverted commas go after my exclamation mark. And then I've got a new speaker next, and the rule is new speaker, new line. So because his wife is now responding to him, I'm going to put her speech on the next line underneath, even though I haven't got to the end of that sentence. So his wife replies, "It is." And I've got my inverted commas to begin it, my comma at the end of "it is," and then my inverted commas to close it. "It is," replied his wife, comma, inverted commas. "It's the day after tomorrow." There's my full stop and my closing speech marks. "But what day is that?" asked the pharaoh. They both swiftly realised they might keep track of time better if each day had a name. Later that day, the pharaoh called 8 animals who were up for a challenge to his palace. Now, if you notice there, I've managed to sneak in a relative clause, that who were up for a challenge. I've used my relative pronoun of who, and I've added that in using my commas this time to show that relative clause embedded into my complex sentence. So later that day, the pharaoh called 8 animals who were up for a challenge to his palace. And I'm going to start some more speech now. So again, I'm going to start a new line. There's my opening speech marks. And he says, I have decided to hold a race. I have decided to hold a race. There's my speech marks at the end of it. My comma just before my speech marks. He declared. And then I've got another comma there before I begin my next section of speech because I haven't reached the end of my sentence yet. So I've decided to hold a race, he declared, and I would like all of you to take part. And that's the end of my sentence. So I'm going to put a full stop and then my closing speech marks. And then I'm going to continue the animals. I haven't started a new speaker there, so I don't need to start a new line. I can continue after his speech. The animals began to chatter enthusiastically. Enthusiast. There's a good long word, showing off that ly suffix. Remember to go back and cross my T's. So the animals began to chatter enthusiastically. Whoever, so I've got some more speech, so I'm going to begin my line again with my opening speech marks. Whoever wins will have the first day of the week named after them. I'm going to try and use a subordinating conjunction here, so I'm going to use since they are the fastest. Second place will have the second day named after them, and so on. And so on until there's another subordinating conjunction, all the days have a name. And there's my closing speech mark. So it was a great big long piece of speech. And remember, we haven't broken that with saying who said it in the middle. So I've got my speech marks at the very beginning and then I've got them at the end after my full stop. Okay, so whoever wins will have the first day of the week named after them, since they are the fastest. Second place will have the second day named after them, and so on until all the days have a name. Now we need to think of a better word than said, because I don't want to say said because it's a bit boring, isn't it? So I think I've already used declared, so I might choose maybe exclaimed. The pharaoh. With an excited grin on his face. Okay, so let's read that back through and check it makes sense. It's always a really good idea to read your work back to check for any mistakes. So long ago, in ancient Egyptian times, there lived an elegant pharaoh. He was a good, kind king, but he was a little forgetful, and he often lost track of time. So I've managed to get my compound sentence in there using but. One day he said to his wife, "I'm sure it's my birthday soon." "It is," replied his wife. "It's the day after tomorrow." "But what day is that?" asked the pharaoh. They both swiftly realised they might keep track of time better if each day had a name. Later that day, the pharaoh called 8 animals who were up for a challenge to his palace. "There's my relative clause. I have decided to hold a race," he declared, "and I would like all of you to take part." The animals began to chatter enthusiastically. "Whoever wins will have the first day of the week named after them, since they are the fastest." Just notice that my whoever has got an E missing, so let's correct that spelling. Whoever wins will have the first day of the week named after them, since they are the fastest. Second place will have the second day named after them, and so on until all the days have a name, exclaimed the pharaoh with an excited grin on his face. So I've managed to get all my different types of sentence in there. I've used my speech marks to show when my speech ends and begins, remembering that rule of new speaker, new line. So I hope that helps to give you some ideas. Let's see your wonderful writing, and remember to keep that handwriting beautiful. Remember to really think carefully about those capital letters and full stops that you're putting in, and try and get all those different sentence types, simple, compound and complex, that you've been learning about this week into that writing, so it makes it really engaging for your reader. I'm really looking forward to reading these stories. Take care, all of you. Bye-bye.